bring out those particular energies or thoughts or whatever it may be. So that is the ban of non-interference. So the ban is actually not a verb. So from his point of view, this is not a double negative because the ban is actually a structure or a thing, and what you are doing is programming that structure with some kind of intent, which is non-interference. So this is a deflection technique that can be used anywhere, and the interesting thing about this, bringing this back up, because again this is such an oldie but goodie thing, is knowing that we can use the structure to program it with all kinds of different things where we are using this as a deflection technique, in that this deflection technique can be used at any time in public spaces outside of your home advantage. Now the other thing he said was there is something that is similar, but this is called a quarantine. Now a quarantine is a structure like a ban, but he said that this is much more serious and you have to be more careful when you are actually calling upon the structure of quarantine, because this is an isolation technique. So if you use an isolation technique, what you're actually doing is you are stopping in its tracks in that person any energy, consciousness, or entity that is being brought through that particular person. You are placing a quarantine around them, and that is an isolation technique. He said the only time you can do that in alignment to cosmic sovereign law to not superimpose through this isolation is when a person enters your own home advantage, meaning your home, and you have set the intention. So let's say you have your home, or you have business, and this is under your responsibility. This is your stewardship. You set your mission and your intent in all of the law of structure into what your intentions are for that structure. Now if an entity or person enters that structure, let's say your home, and their intent is to destroy, harm, or do something to tear down that structure, he says in alignment to the law you have every right to isolate, because that entity, it's like saying in the ban of non-interference, because that person is not in your home, you can deflect, but when a person is choosing to use intent to destroy or create harm, they lose their sovereign right in the law, and thus you can isolate them. Meaning that you have the right to not have your home destroyed. You have the right to not have the community destroyed. You have the right to protect that particular structure when there is undue harm and destruction that is being directed to you. You have the right to quarantine that person and therefore escort them out, because what the quarantine is an isolation technique that can both quarantine the person while they are in the structure, or remove them from the structure so that they are quarantined and not able to actually enter the structure. But he said that that is a technique that you want to not do lightly, meaning that there is more serious consequences to the isolation technique, but that under home advantage, meaning any time at your home, where you live, something you created like your project, again like Hyros Gamos, or ES community or whatever, you have the right to quarantine because the structure has been set within a certain law, and if an entity enters that structure and they refuse to be compliant or in consent or to behave in alignment to that structure, you have every right to isolate, especially if there is intent to harm included with that particular person, entity, or thing. So anyway, I thought that that was very informative and helpful, and even though I understood that the ban of non-interference and quarantine was actually a structure, the way that he explained it to me was so helpful to me and really gave me an aha moment, so I wanted to just share that with you in the hope that this is also helpful to you as well, because it's been an action-packed few months for sure. Superimpositions or unprovoked energy attack. Specifically directed spiritual attacks is a more rare occurrence